Hi, I'm Chana. For most of my life, I've lived in a world of muffled sounds and lip reading after losing most of my hearing in an accident when I was 12. My parents, Eleanor and Richard, always made a big show of how much they'd sacrificed to support me. When I turned 22, I qualified for an experimental procedure that restored my hearing, but something made me hesitate to tell my parents right away. Chana, honey, did you remember to charge your hearing aids? Mom called extra loudly from the kitchen as I came downstairs one morning. Yes, Mom, I signed back, deciding to keep up appearances even though I could hear her perfectly. Good girl. Your father and I are meeting with the lawyer today about your trust fund. Just boring paperwork, she said, her voice dropping to a normal volume as she turned away. Nothing for you to worry about. Dad walked in, straightening his tie. Morning, Princess, he said loudly, exaggerating his mouth movements like I was 5 instead of 22. Morning, Dad, I signed, watching his expression carefully. We'll be back around 3, he announced, then turned to Mom with a lowered voice. Did you call Derek about moving up the appointment? Not yet, she whispered. I'll do it from the car. Good. We need to finalize everything before she has any reason to ask questions. They thought I couldn't hear, but every word was crystal clear. I pretended to be focused on my cereal. My cousin Zoe stopped by later that day. Unlike my parents, she knew about my treatment. So how's the hearing? Zoe whispered when we were alone in my room. Amazing. And weird. I keep forgetting I don't need to read lips anymore, I said. But I haven't told my parents yet. Why not? That's huge news, Kana. I don't know. Something feels off. They've been having all these secret meetings and phone calls. Dad keeps talking about investments and my future security, but changes the subject when I walk in. That's suspicious. Zoe frowned, twisting her bracelets, a nervous habit. Your parents have controlled your trust fund since your accident, the one your grandparents set up. I know. They've always said they're saving it for when I really need it. They get full control until I'm 25, which is in 3 months. How much is in that trust anyway? Zoe asked. Almost $2 million, I said quietly. Grandpa invested well. My parents have been the trustees since the accident, but I'm supposed to get control when I turn 25. Do they know about the hearing procedure? No. Insurance covered it through a special program. I didn't need their permission. And they have no idea you can hear them now? Zoe's eyes widened. That's actually pretty powerful. I didn't plan it this way, I admitted. But now I'm glad I waited. My whole life they've talked around me, over me, about me, like I wasn't even there. Now I'm finally hearing the truth. Just be careful. My mom, your Aunt Judith, always said your dad had some questionable business practices. That night, I was heading to bed when I heard voices from Dad's office. I paused in the hallway, realizing they had no idea I could hear them. The transfer has to happen before her birthday, Dad was saying. Once she turns 25, we lose access. What if she finds out? Mom asked. She's not completely helpless, Richard. She won't. She can barely hear announcements at a train station, Eleanor. By the time she realizes the money will be safely in the Cayman account. We've earned it after dealing with her disability all these years. And if she tries to challenge it? Who would believe her over us? We're her devoted parents who've sacrificed everything. Besides, the documents already have her signature. Or close enough. I froze, my heart pounding. They were planning to steal my inheritance, money my grandparents had left specifically for me, and they were forging my signature to do it. Derek at the bank is on board, Dad continued. Meeting's set for Thursday. And after the transfer? Mom asked. We wait until after her birthday party. Keep up appearances. Then we announce our retirement plans. 3 months later, we're living in Europe, and she'll be none the wiser. It seems cruel, Richard. Cruel? We've spent the last decade catering to her disability. That money is our reward. Besides, we'll set up a modest account for her, enough to get by. She's never handled money before anyway. She needs us to make these decisions. I slipped away silently, hands shaking with rage and disbelief. The next day, I called the one person I knew could help. "Uncle Marcus? It's Chana. I need your help, and you can't tell anyone we talked." Uncle Marcus, my father's estranged brother and a financial investigator, met me at a cafe downtown. "You're sure about this, Chana?" he asked, leaning forward with concern etched on his face. "That's a serious accusation against your parents." "I heard them, clear as day. They're planning to transfer my trust fund money offshore before I turn 25. "And they don't know your hearing has improved?" "No one does except Zoe and now you." Marcus sighed heavily. "Your father and I haven't spoken in years, but this is beyond anything I would have expected from him." "You believe me, right?" I asked anxiously. "Of course I do. Richard was always obsessed with appearances and money. That's what drove us apart. But stealing from his own daughter?" Marcus shook his head. "Let me make some calls. I still have contacts at a few banks. If Richard is trying to move that kind of money, someone will have noticed." "What should I do in the meantime?" I asked. "I have to keep pretending I can't hear anything." "Keep playing your role. Document everything. And Chana, be careful. People can be unpredictable when their plans are threatened." The next day, I met with my friend Danny, who worked as a paralegal. "Your grandparents' trust is ironclad," Danny explained, showing me documents she'd pulled. "Your parents are trustees until you're 25, but they're required to act in your best interest. They can't just take the money." "But they've got someone at the bank helping them," I said. "That would be fraud. Multiple felonies, actually." Danny pushed her glasses up her nose. "You need to document everything." "How am I supposed to do that without letting them know I can hear?" "Record them. New York is a one-party consent state. If you're part of the conversation, you can record it legally." "Even if they think I can't hear what they're saying?" "As long as you're present in the room, yes." "But Hannah," Danny leaned forward, her expression serious. "Are you ready for what happens after? This could tear your family apart." I thought about all the years my parents had controlled every aspect of my life, using my disability as an excuse. "They tore it apart the moment they decided to steal from me," I replied. Later that week, I ran into my parents' friend Vivian at the grocery store. She'd always been nice to me, but firmly in my parents' corner. "Chana, darling, how are you managing by yourself?" she asked, speaking too loudly and over-enunciating. "I'm good, thanks," I signed, and spoke simultaneously, playing my part. "Your parents told me about their big travel plans, 3 months in Europe after your birthday. They've worked so hard looking after you. They deserve it." "Europe? They didn't mention that to me." Vivian's smile faltered. "Oh, maybe it was supposed to be a surprise. Forget I said anything." "When did they decide this?" I asked, keeping my expression neutral. "Oh, months ago. Richard showed me the villa they're renting in the south of France. A year-long lease. Isn't that exciting?" My stomach dropped. A year-long lease? This wasn't a vacation. They were planning to leave the country permanently. When I got home, I confronted my father, carefully maintaining my hearing-impaired behavior. "Europe trip?" I signed aggressively. "After my birthday?" Dad looked startled. "Who told you about that? It's just an idea we're considering." "With what money?" I signed, my movements sharp and angry. "Don't take that tone with me, young lady," he said, voice rising. "We've sacrificed everything for you since your accident. If we want to take one vacation, we've earned it." "My trust fund?" I signed. "That money is for your care. We're your caretakers," he shouted, forgetting I supposedly couldn't hear his volume. "You wouldn't even know how to manage that kind of money." Mom came running in. "Richard, calm down. The neighbors will hear." "She's asking about the Europe trip," Dad said, lowering his voice. Vivian must have said something. "It's just a small vacation," Mom said soothingly, turning to me. "Nothing for you to worry about, sweetie. We'll make arrangements for your care while we're gone." I stormed out, but not before planting a small recording device under the desk in Dad's office. That night, Uncle Marcus called. "Chana, I found something." Derek Johnson at First National is an old college buddy of your dad's. He's been flagged twice for suspicious transactions. I'm sending the reports now. Thursday, I said. That's when they're meeting him. Then we'll be ready. I've contacted the bank's security officer. They take fraud very seriously. Thursday arrived. I'd spent hours with Uncle Marcus and a lawyer he trusted, reviewing the evidence and preparing. When my parents headed out to run errands, I followed with Zoe and Marcus in a separate car. Are you sure you're ready for this? Zoe asked, squeezing my hand as we trailed my parents' sedan. Once you do this, there's no going back. They gave me no choice, I replied. They were planning to abandon me after taking everything. At the bank, we waited until they were inside Derek's office before making our entrance. The security officer and bank manager accompanied us. What is this? Dad demanded when we walked in. His face went pale seeing Uncle Marcus. Marcus? What are you doing with Kana? She came to me for help, Richard, Marcus said calmly, after she overheard your plans. Mom laughed nervously. Overheard? Chana can barely hear anything. There must be a misunderstanding. Actually, I said clearly, without signing, I can hear everything perfectly now. Have been able to for weeks. The color drained from both their faces. What? Mom whispered. Experimental procedure. Very successful. Just in time to hear you planning to steal my inheritance and flee to Europe? That's ridiculous, Dad sputtered, looking at Derek for support. Tell them, Derek. We're simply restructuring Chana's trust fund. For her benefit. Derek the banker started edging toward the door. I think there's been a confusion. Sit down, Mr. Johnson, the bank manager ordered. Nobody's leaving until we sort this out. You've got nothing, Dad snarled, recovering his composure. It's our word against yours. I pulled out my phone. Actually, I have recordings. Several of them. You discussing the transfer, the Cayman account, and how I'd never figure it out because of my disability. You recorded us? In our own home? Mom looked outraged. Yes, after you forged my signature on bank documents. Let's hear it then, Dad challenged, a desperate edge to his voice. I played the recording from their office. Their voices filled the room, discussing how they'd earned my money after dealing with my disability. That could be anyone, Dad said weakly. We have the forged documents too, the bank manager said, with signatures that don't match Miss Davis's actual signature and wire transfer requests to accounts in the Cayman Islands. We're your parents. Everything we've done has been for your own good, Dad shouted. You ungrateful? Mr. Davis, the security officer interrupted. I suggest you stop talking now. You were supposed to be the easy mark, Mom hissed, her carefully maintained facade crumbling. The perfect dependent child we could control forever. But you've always been difficult, haven't you? Eleanor, Dad warned. No, I'm done pretending, Mom continued, her voice rising hysterically. Do you know what it's like having to cater to a disabled child for 10 years? The social events we missed? The vacations we canceled? That money is payment for our suffering? Mom, I was the one who was deaf, I said evenly. Not you. You bitch, she spat, lunging toward me. Zoe stepped between us as the security officer restrained my mother. That's assault, the bank manager said quietly, picking up the phone. I'm calling the police. You can't do this to us, Dad growled, pointing at me threateningly. We're your parents. You'll regret this for the rest of your life. That sounds like a threat, Richard, Marcus observed, in front of multiple witnesses. As the police were called, I stood my ground, finally hearing the truth, in more ways than one. The weeks following the bank confrontation passed in a blur of legal meetings and police interviews. My parents were charged with attempted fraud, forgery, and in my mother's case, attempted assault. I moved in with Zoe temporarily while the investigation continued. The forensic accountant found evidence they've been siphoning smaller amounts from your trust for years, my lawyer, Mrs. Hendricks, explained during one of our meetings, taking advantage of their position as trustees. How much? I asked. Nearly $80,000 over the past decade. Vacations, a boat, luxury purchases, all disguised as care expenses for you. Uncle Marcus shook his head. Classic Richard. He always wanted the shortcut to wealth. 3 months later, I sat in the courtroom as my parents entered their guilty pleas in exchange for reduced sentences. My father would serve 2 years, my mother 18 months. The judge had frozen their assets, and they'd been ordered to repay everything they'd taken. After the hearing, they approached me in the hallway, their attorney hovering nearby. "Chana, please," Mom began, her voice breaking. "We're still your parents. We made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but we love you." "We can make this right," Dad added, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "Once this is all over, we can be a family again." I looked at them both, these strangers I'd trusted my entire life. "No," I said simply. "We can't." "You can't just throw away 22 years of family," Mom pleaded. "We raised you, You exploited me," I corrected her. "You saw my disability as your meal ticket. There's no coming back from that." "What do you want from us then?" Dad asked bitterly. "Nothing. I don't want anything from either of you ever again." I turned to leave, but Mom grabbed my arm. "You have to forgive us someday, Hannah. You have to." Uncle Marcus gently removed her hand. "That's enough, Eleanor. She doesn't have to do anything." A month later, on my 25th birthday, I signed the final paperwork to take control of my trust fund. Zoe, Uncle Marcus, Danny, and Mrs. Hendricks celebrated with me. "So what now?" Zoe asked. "What are you going to do with your life and your money?" "I'm going back to school," I said. "Speech pathology. I want to help kids with hearing impairments, and I'm starting a foundation to fund hearing restoration procedures for those who can't afford them." "Your grandparents would be proud," Marcus said. "What about your parents?" Danny asked carefully. "They've been writing to you from prison." "Those letters go straight into a box," I said firmly. "Maybe someday I'll read them. Maybe I won't." "You don't owe them forgiveness," Mrs. Hendricks remarked. "I know, and that's the most valuable thing I've learned from all this." I raised my glass. To hearing the truth, even when it's painful. That night, alone in my new apartment, I opened the window and listened to the sounds of the city. Car horns, distant music, voices drifting up from the street. Sounds I'd missed for so long. The world can be loud and harsh and beautiful all at once. Sometimes the people closest to us speak the most damaging words. But now I can hear everything clearly, including my own voice, finally speaking up for myself. What would you do if you discovered the people meant to protect you were actually your greatest threat? Would you have the courage to stand up against them? Let me know in the comments below.